Previously on Not Friends.
Selfie. Having so much fun with my New York bestie.
I have an oat milk latte for Steve.
Wait, your name's Steve?
Dude, what is this show?
No clue. It sucks.
Do you want to go to the Nest?
Yeah. You know they got new games there?
Wait, really?
Good afternoon, everybody. It is such an honor to be here. I'm Linda Mills, president of NYU, and I am so thrilled to welcome you to today's talk with the one and only NYU professor, Jonathan Haidt. The last time I introduced John at an event, it was last year at the annual convening of university presidents, where we host at NYU to advance the conversation on student well-being. In the months since, John has established himself as the most consequential scholar of this time. Make no mistake, John has for many years been a leading voice on the forces that shape modern society, from democracy to viewpoint diversity, loneliness, ethics, technology, social media. But now, Professor Haidt is the face of a movement. The Thomas Cooley Chair in Ethical Leadership and a professor of business and society at NYU Stern, John gained widespread prominence in 2012 with his best-selling book, The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. The book considered the psychological roots of political division, way before people were talking about polarization. John sees trends well before others. In 2018, he co-authored The Coddling of the American Mind, another bestseller. And of course, he's the author of the best-selling book turned global phenomenon, The Anxious Generation, which he followed with The Amazing Generation last year. Working with students and parents, principals, and presidents of countries, yes, countries, not just universities, and anyone who recognizes the effects of doom scrolling, John has built a groundswell of support for a simple but very serious idea. Turn it off, lock it up, sign out. That's the premise of today's event and the foundation of NYU IRL. Inspired by John's leadership and John's scholarship, NYU IRL offers phone-free spaces, events, and classroom resources to reclaim our attention and to help us get the most of our time here at NYU. We are truly fortunate to have John at NYU. As both a therapist and a university leader, I'm grateful for the impact he's had on our campus already, not to mention on schools and institutions around the world. I also want to thank Christy Patton, counselor to the president, and Brianna Gonsalves for helping us to bring NYU IRL to life across NYU's global network, let alone John's amazing team. And of course, I want to thank all of you for joining us today in real life. I hope you don't need a reminder to silence your cell phone before we bring out our very special guest, right? Please join me in welcoming the world-famous Jonathan Haidt.
Well, thank you so much, Linda. It's so exciting to be here because we're going to do something really big here at NYU. And it was really Linda's idea, Linda and her team's initiative, and I'm so pleased to be a part of it. I thought, since I'm giving this talk now, I thought I'd put it really in the big context. What is going on? And why do we need this initiative? Why do we need NYU IRL? And so I'm going to tell you the two mysteries, the two detective stories that I've been trying to solve since 2014. This has taken over my career. I used to study political polarization and moral development, and while that's related, I'm now focused on these two mysteries. What happened to universities, and what happened to people born after 1995? Something changed. And as we'll see, the two stories come together very, very quickly. So here's how the university story goes. Once upon a time, academic life was idyllic. You got paid to go to grad school and read books. You got paid to live on a university campus and teach brilliant students. I've been a professor since 1995 at the University of Virginia for 16 years and then here at NYU since 2011. And I love it. I can't believe I get paid to do what I do. But something changed in 2014, and everything got a lot less fun, a lot more serious, a lot more scary. There was a sudden wave of protests against speakers and books. There were cancellations. People had to be so careful what they said. And if any of you have read Plato's Dialogues, the origin of the university or the origin of the academy is a group of people sitting around drinking wine, talking about ideas, and really trying to be provocative. And all that suddenly became much more dangerous in 2014. And this beloved institution was changing. And it was happening not just all over the country, but all over the English-speaking world at the same time. So that was really weird. Why is that? So I wrote an article in The Atlantic with my friend Greg Lukianoff in 2015 called The Coddling of the American Mind. And then things got really much worse, much more tense on campus, became much more difficult. So we turned that into a book, as Linda mentioned, in 2018, a book called The Coddling of the American Mind. And what we focused there on, coddling means overprotection. And we gathered all kinds of data that kids used to have a free-range childhood. We used to all be out on our bicycles from the age of 8 or 9, all being independent. And then in the 90s, that changed. So this is part of the story, is the overprotection of people born in the mid to late 90s and ever since. And there's a lot of interesting sociological reasons why we did that. And that actually happened all over the English-speaking world. So it turns out, though, that's just a part of the story. And even when we published the book, I kind of knew that, well, that can't really explain everything. It's a contributing factor, but there's a lot more to the story. Okay, so here's the second story, the developmental story, why people born after 1995 are growing up differently than those who were born before it. So I can draw every graph in the anxious generation like this. Whatever it is that you're plotting, if it's a measure of anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicide, meaninglessness, pointlessness, any sort of bad psychological variable. The rates were fairly low in the 90s through 2012, really 2010, 2011. They begin to go up a little 2012, and then 2013, it just goes up. It's like a hockey stick. And when we found that was happening, not just in the US, but all over the English-speaking world, and then also in Scandinavia, and then in Western Europe, that's when I realized I have to focus on this. This is possibly the biggest thing that there is to study, that a social scientist could possibly study. And as we came to understand, so we all saw this on campus in 2014, 2015. That's when mental health centers across the country were flooded. And there were articles in the newspaper about how coast to coast, universities can't keep up with the demand for mental health services. It wasn't like this in 2012, but by 2015 it was. And this turns out to be part of the first detective story. Why did campus life change so radically around 2014 to 2015? And there are a bunch of reasons, but one of the contributing threads is that college students coming in, we all thought we understood college students. The millennials, they like to drink and eat avocados or whatever it is that millennials like to do. We thought we understood what college students were like. But all of a sudden, the students that were coming in were much more in defend mode. They saw things more threatening. If a book or a speaker makes points that they don't like, they would see that as threatening, not as an opportunity to engage, or just as a reason to just not go to the talk. So the sudden arrival of people who had much higher levels of anxiety and depression had a big impact in universities, because the whole reason American universities are so amazing is that we've developed this institution, much better than European universities where they don't live on campus generally. We have this whole community that is exploring and learning together. And that kind of assumes a more of an explorer mode or discover mode mindset. And when that mindset shifts to more negative threat sensitivity, it doesn't work. And that's part of what happened to us, I believe, in the 2010s. Let's see. All right, so in 2019, I volunteered to create an undergrad course called Flourishing. I had already been teaching since 2014 a course that's done for MBA students called Work, Wisdom, and Happiness. And it covered some positive psychology, some workplace leadership. It was aimed at people in their late 20s. And in 2019, we had a meeting at Stern about our undergrads, they have high levels of anxiety and depression, like everywhere. What are we going to do? So I volunteered to create the course. And then COVID happened and everything changed and everybody was put on screens. The thing that young people most needed in 2019 was a lot less time on screens and a lot more time out with their friends unsupervised outdoors. And what happened with our COVID response, the American COVID response, was disastrous from a human development point of view, because we put all of our young people on screens all day long. And in New York City, we closed all the playgrounds. We didn't let kids play outside during COVID. So things got worse around the country and on university campuses. The mental health problems got worse. We thought they'd get better after COVID receded. And some of them did moderate a little bit, but just a little bit. It turns out that the thing driving all of this, I now believe, is technology. I have begun calling myself a techno-determinist with a whole bunch of exceptions. There is room for human will. We can change things, as you'll see. But when fire or electricity or the Industrial Revolution or the telegraph or television, when a new technology is invented, it changes everything downstream over the course of decades or centuries. And this, I believe, as I argue in the book, is what caused both the unrest on campus, the rise of far-right and far-left populism in our democracy, and the rise of mental illness in people who went through puberty on these devices. So the center of the story is what I call the great rewiring of childhood, which is that in 2010, young people had flip phones. The iPhone had been invented, but very few young people had one. And there was no front-facing camera, and you had to pay for your texts. And so it was a communication device. By 2015, everyone has an iPhone with a front-facing camera, multiple social media apps, especially Instagram, unlimited data. And now everyone has a device in their pocket that's not a communication tool. It's a portal by which the entire world and all the companies that want children's attention can just take it. They can interrupt you. They can get on your phone. So it's really that period, 2010 to 2015. If you went through puberty during that period or later, you're Gen Z. The millennials' mental health was not affected because they were done with puberty by the time they got on Instagram. At least that's the argument that I make in the book. So now I want to really relate this to, there's a wonderful coincidence that the greatest media theorist of the 20th century, Neil Postman, was a professor here at NYU. He did his work right here at NYU. And Postman, he taught here from 1959 through his death from cancer in 2003. So he did live long enough to see the internet. And back then, in 2002, 2003, we all thought it was glorious. We all thought it was going to be the best friend of democracy. It's going to liberate everybody. It's going to be the most amazing thing to happen to humanity. But Postman had his doubts. And here's what he said in one of the last interviews of his life. He said, "When two human beings get together, they're co-present. There is built into it a certain responsibility we have for each other. You can't just turn off a person. On the internet, you can. And I wonder if this doesn't diminish that built-in human sense of responsibility we have for each other." Boy, was he right. This academic community, this thing that I loved so much, an academic community is weakened by technology because suddenly everyone is connected to everyone all over. when students are sitting in your class, most of them are on their phones or their computers. They're still communicating with everybody everywhere. And there's a very powerful line from a tech theorist at MIT, Sherry Turkle, who says, because of our devices, we are forever elsewhere. We are never fully present in what we're doing. And that is an incredibly dehumanizing effect of technology, especially on an institution like a university. The whole reason that American universities are so great is that it's really fun to come here, and you grow a lot, and you have a sense, and a sense of school spirit, and a sense that you have this new identity. And all of that has been weakened by technology. So that is why what we're doing here today, launching NYU IRL, is so important. Our goal here, we're going to fight to make universities great again. We're going to fight to restore that real sense of academic community. We're going to strengthen community here at NYU despite the anti-communitarian ravages of technology. And I am so pleased so Linda called me into her office soon after she took over the presidency. And, there's an old thing left over from childhood, I guess. You're called into the principal's office. You don't know what she's going to say. But the thing is, she got it instantly. She'd read The Anxious Generation, and she just got it instantly. And she was incredibly supportive of what I was doing. I've built a movement here at NYU. NYU is the fiscal sponsor. NYU has given us tremendous support to run the Anxious Generation movement. And Linda basically said, we're here to support you. Like, you go. You do it. Like, I'm 100% behind you. And then, I can't remember if it was a few months later or what, she and her team, Christy and Brianna, they came to me and they said, we have an idea. We are going to push back against the phone-based childhood and the phone-based college experience, and we're going to do something. And they floated names like IRL, and that's, of course, what it became, NYU IRL. And I said, wow, that makes so much sense. Like, we are the place to do it for a whole bunch of reasons. Can you imagine coming from wherever you come from in the world to NYU in New York City? And what do? You go to classes and you sit and scroll. What an incredible waste of opportunity. So we have these incredible resources here at NYU. We are one of the leading research universities. There's just so much going on intellectually. We are in the leading city in the world. There is so much going on intellectually and socially in this city. We are a global university. There's so much life experience that an NYU student gets to have much more easily than anyone that goes anywhere else. So we're going to draw on those strengths. And then also the two things that I do. I'm so pleased that I fit in so perfectly to this, because one thing is my whole movement is based here, and we're going to work, if we can get a model of how to change habits in a university, if we can get a model that works here at NYU, then we can that will spread, because every university president sees the same problems. Everyone has been facing the mental health crisis for 10, 12 years now. So if we get this right here, it's going to have a global effect. And then the other thing that I do is I teach this course, Flourishing. I've only taught it four times to undergrads. And I've learned so much from that as we work through, each year of the course has been different, because we learn from the previous year, like what works, what can you try, and how to narrow because students have to make themselves better by the end of the 14 weeks and take measurements and then report. How did you do it? What did you do? What changed? So I am so pleased that I get to call up three of my star students. These are all students at Stern who took the course. So I'm going to call them up. I think I'm supposed to sit here, they say, so you guys sit in whatever order you want over there. So Eva Shapiro, who's a sophomore at Stern, pursuing her BS in Business, Finance, and Management, and art history in the college. Ella Wisdom, who is a sophomore pursuing her BS in business and political economy at Stern. And Everett Jania, a sophomore pursuing his BS in business and finance at Stern. Welcome to the three students. All right, well, how wonderful to see you guys again. I was asked to nominate students to come, and you three were the first ones I thought of. And so I think what I'd like to do to start off is I'm going to ask you each to tell me, I guess you could call it your technology autobiography, but not like the whole thing, like Teletubbies and at the, but like with a special focus on education. Like, how did it affect your education? So I guess we'll just start with Everett. So just lead us through, what technologies were you using in middle school and high school? Did it augment your education? Were there advantages, or did it interfere? And then when you came to NYU, especially bring us in on like your first few months. And what habits you got into, because that's going to be key, is changing habits. So we'll start with Everett.
Of course. So thank you again for bringing me on today. I just want to preface, this might be a crazy story for you guys to hear what I was doing in terms of how long I was using the phone. So just be ready for that. But in middle school and high school, I had TikTok, I had Instagram Reels, right? But I was able to control the urge to scroll. That's why I was able to get into NYU. That's why I was able to get good grades and things like that, right? However, after I got in, there's this thing called the senior slump, right? After you get into college, you kind of just stop doing work as hard as you did, right? Like, why? You don't really have to do anything because you already got in. And that kind of slump, I carried that with me to NYU. So I wasn't super focused. I wasn't super dialed in that sense. And I kept scrolling. During my first year at NYU, I did not do that well. I'm just being transparent. I had a relatively low GPA because every morning I would wake up, I would scroll. The first thing I would do. Walking to track practice, I would scroll. After track practice, I would scroll. In between classes, I would scroll and scroll and scroll every time before bed. And what this did was it limited the opportunities for me to do deep work, right? Whenever I would study, I'd have to take breaks every 20 minutes because I couldn't focus, because the phone called to me every time. And as a result, my grades suffered. And I didn't realize this problem, right? It's kind of hard to see an issue you have from the inside. So, after I entered my sophomore year, I was still scrolling, obviously, and I joined Professor Haidt's flourishing class. And the first day was the most meaningful for me. We did a poll in class about the screen time averages that we had. And people were complaining. They were yelling about their 5 hours, 6 hours a day. And I noticed at the end, there was one outlier, 10 hours a day. And that was me. I was scrolling on the phone for 10 hours a day. I don't even know how I did it. It's insane to think about, really, almost half a day. And that kind of prompted me to change. Thankfully, in the class, I was able to learn various techniques. I deleted Instagram and TikTok. I was able to meditate. I was able to unlock new things and unlock deep work, and I almost got a 4.0. Basically, I 3.97 or something. So, thank you. I was able to make such a drastic change, and the class was so pivotal to me in my life success that I'm now set. I no longer have the urge to scroll. I no longer go to bed looking at Instagram Reels. I can actually relax, and I can actually form better relationships with both myself and my friends around me. So to that, I'm eternally grateful to Professor Haidt.
Well done, Everett. And the course does, by the end, sometimes have a kind of a church revival feeling to it. And I threw out my crutches and I could walk. And I think I wrote in my comments to you, I think that you got the award for most improved. Your habit change was just extraordinary. So well done, Everett. Okay, Ella?
Yeah, I really resonate with a lot of that. Before I even get into education, I got my first device for myself when I was around 7 years old. And truly, some of my fondest memories, just with my closest friendships, my friends when I was young, was making video stars and iMovies. If you're familiar, one of my best friends is in the audience with me. And some of our best memories were truly shared together, making these music videos with each other.
You were together in the same room.
Yes.
Right,
and so this is the difference, I think, between when things were really great with my relationship with technology, when things got really bad. Because when we were using this platform called Video Star, there was no aspect of social media to it whatsoever. You could not see anybody else. You could not see anyone else on the internet. They couldn't see what I was doing. It was just me and my friends, what costumes are we going to put on for this song? So things really took their first turn, I think, with my relationship with technology, the moment that I was able to consume other people's content and the moment that other people could see me on the internet. I was 8 years old when I downloaded Instagram. 8 years old, and that sounds crazy. My parents didn't know what it was.
When did you start posting?
When I was 8 years old. I was 8 years old, and my older sister had it. My mom is going to kill me for talking about this. My mom's a wonderful mother, I promise. She just didn't know. She didn't know. But my older sister had it, and so I just naturally really wanted it. And it's very strange when you're so young to be suddenly so acutely aware of what things you could post that would get likes and what things other people who had a lot of followers were posting. And so I was very young and just very aware of how I could best curate my image online. I'm like, at this point, I'm 10, 11, 12, and this continued all through high school. So I think it's really embarrassing for me to admit now how much time I spent in high school so obsessed with the way that I was being perceived online. And I think that was very all-consuming. It's just so embarrassing to me. I'd be on vacation and be obsessed with like making my parents take hundreds of photos of me so I could put the best. Like that's awful. I was going on these wonderful experiences and vacations, and it was so important to me to make sure that the people back home could see that I was having this awesome time, which is awful. And so I think that was the first part of when my relationship with technology became very poor. I think around 2019, with the rise of short form media, was probably when my attention was the most stolen, and I started to see the worst effects on my performance academically. These algorithms are so specifically designed to capture your attention, right? And it's usually not making you feel super good. I think the algorithm does a really good job of showing you the things that either you're the most insecure about or will get you the most evoked emotionally, usually negatively. And so again, it's very specifically and meticulously designed to take your attention. And so when you're trying to do schoolwork and you're trying to be focused and you have your phone next to you, that's, like you said, a portal to information, it's impossible to think that the reading I'm supposed to be doing that's actually going to take time for me to digest and think through critically. It's hard for me to want to do that when I can get information after information after information, all this stimulation from my phone.
So when you got here to NYU as a freshman, like in September, October, like what was your life like then?
It was like I would rather look at Instagram Reels than be around people. And I think NYU is very specifically vulnerable to the effects that we see because we don't have a traditional campus. And it's so easy for you to not be around people all the time. We don't have sports teams we do have sports teams. They're great sports teams. But we don't have a lot of school spirit here. And so we don't have a traditional campus, and so we're not really going to as many like closed campus events where we can really hang out with one another. And so it's very pronounced here when people are like, our walk to campus is walk through the streets of New York, right? And so it's so easy for us to get on our phones. We're in elevators with people that we don't really know, and of course you would rather get on your phone than start to talk to people. So for like my attention, of course, I think it was very fragmented when I came here. But I think the worst effects have really been pronounced in the way that it's been much harder to make close connections with people than anticipated because we're just so prone to looking at our phones all the time.
And then tell us what you did to regain it.
Right. Yeah. So like he said, our project was to make ourselves better in some way by doing some habit consistently. And so I chose meditation. And what I really liked about meditation is it really bled into every other aspect that you taught us about in class. It made me more sociable. It made me stronger. It made me more awe-inspired by the world. But I think that the biggest thing that fed into that first was the detachment from my phone. I think it's such a cycle. I think when you detach from your phone, you sleep more. And then I think when you sleep more, you have more time. And when you have more time, you're less stressed out. So you don't want to go start scrolling on your phone. And then the cycle doesn't repeat itself because then you're not staying up super late. And then so I think truly, if you haven't tried to like detach from your phone before, you will see the ripple effects in every other aspect of your life. I promise you, your friendships will get stronger. Your attention will be stronger. Everything will be better for you.
Beautiful. And I just really want to emphasize two things. One is that I wrote The Anxious Generation focused overwhelmingly on mental health, on anxiety, depression, and its relation to social media, and especially Instagram for girls. That's where we had the best data. Early Gen Z was shaped by that. TikTok doesn't really get popular until 2020, until COVID. And it's only since the book came out that I've realized, however horrific the mental health damage is, the bigger damage is actually the destruction of the human ability to pay attention, because this is affecting certainly the great majority of people born after 1995 around the world. But now I'm hearing more and more from adults, including myself, it's happening to us too. It's just harder for us to pay attention. And so when Ella regained, you have to first get rid of the phone, and then she put in a positive practice of meditation that trained her to keep her focus on whatever she was doing, not scattered around. And then the other thing I want to emphasize is that in so many of the students' final papers, and in the last day of class we always talk about, you see this like multi-system improvement. Like you change one thing, which then changes two really important things, which then like everything in your life changes. Yeah. And that's why I'm so excited about NYU IRL, because we can do this at a mass level with all of our incoming freshmen. We can help them. It's pretty simple to change some of these important habits, and we can have a huge effect on the thousands of incoming students in just a few months. Eva.
Yeah,
But I have very similar, I think, in many ways to both of you. Growing up, I went to a Montessori school for both elementary and middle school, which I was very in real life. I feel like growing up, I was basically playing games for my childhood for learning, which was really effective. My Montessori middle school was actually, we had phone lockers in 2019. So they were way ahead of the game. And then everything changed when COVID hit and I entered high school. So those two things happened at the exact same time for me, which for all of us that happened. So not only was I entering non-Montessori school at a time where everyone was online, and then also kind of, in that key point of my development, I think that's when my relationship with phones really changed. When I was in elementary school and when I was younger, I was going to summer camp every summer. I'm from Colorado, so I was always outside. And then as I got older and COVID shut the world down, that really changed, and that really changed my relationship with technology. Coming to NYU, I had very poor screen time habits. I was staying up late scrolling. I was waking up scrolling. One thing that we discussed in class that I really started to think about was my phone was the first thing that I looked at every single morning, and it was the last thing that I looked at every time I went to bed. I literally went a full day and controlled by the device. We looked at our notifications. I had over 400 notifications throughout the day from miscellaneous apps. That was just times that my phone was notifying me and interrupting my day. And so throughout the class, reducing those notifications. One thing that was really, really helpful for me is we went on all walks, leaving my phone in my dorm, going on a walk. I've also started to implement that when I go to the library. I'll leave my phone in my apartment at home. I think that, especially being in New York City, sometimes there's fears around safety without a device, but the ability to be productive and really focus on what you're doing, it's just not possible when you have a phone on you. And so I've really been able to, throughout the course, specifically throughout John's course and throughout the time at NYU, I've really been able to reduce my screen use and kind of go back to who I was before COVID and before I was really scrolling nonstop.
What was the main thing you did to change your habits?
My biggest thing was deleting the social media apps. I don't think that it's possible to limit yourself. I don't think that the self-control when you are really addicted to these apps, it's not really there. So deleting the apps is kind of the only way to really regain that attention. Turning your phone back into a communication device is really the key. I think the tendency to want to re-download apps can be really strong. And if you don't have like the foundation of being able to navigate the world of a device without being able to scroll, it won't help if you re-download and delete, re-download, etc. And the apps make it really hard. You can't open TikToks unless you have the TikTok app and you have TikToks downloaded. And so the idea of you're missing out if you don't have the app or you don't know what's going on online is really strong. When we first came to NYU, everyone shares their Instagrams. I feel like a really big thing in our class was we're going to miss out on all the key moments if we don't have Instagram, if we're not in the group chats, etc. And so taking the step to delete those apps is really hard. But once you do, you regain so much control over your life, I'd say.
Amazing. So actually, let me ask the entire audience, how many of you, the first thing you do when you open your eyes, before you get out of bed, before you drink water, whatever, how many of you, the first thing you do is you check your phone and you look at notifications? Raise your hand if that's true about you. Okay, so almost all the younger people and a lot of the older people as well. And how about the last thing you do before you close your eyes at night? How many of you is sort of check your phone? Okay, so this is something I didn't know this until I taught the course, that it was, because I knew some did. I didn't know it was 95%. It was like everybody. And so this is one of the easiest things to do is we work on your morning and evening routine, because one of the big ideas in the course is that your attention is the most valuable thing you have. There's no limit to how much money you can make in this world, as we now see, but you can never get more attention. And so, as Eva said, she was getting 400 notifications. She didn't understand that her attention is precious. She has to preserve it. So there's some very easy things that you can do by changing your morning and evening routine, where you regain control of your phone, you regain control of your attention, you regain control of your life. And they're so easy to do. So, okay, well, it's so wonderful. You see the struggles, the things that we put on this generation, the technology, the COVID restrictions, all the obstacles that they have faced. And you see that just by applying themselves, they overcame them spectacularly. So please, a round of applause for our three students. So now I think you have some questions for me, and I think they're just sort of formulated so we just get to talk about like the course and like what we can do at NYU. But please go ahead and we'll start with you, Eva.
Yeah. I mean, my question for you really revolves around, you've spent so much time specifically reshaping talking about how online devices have reshaped childhood, giving advice to parents, and then you've also taught this course to college students now, undergrad students specifically for 4 years. So I'd love to know, for students who are already in college, for my friends, for my younger sister who will be in college soon, what are the practical steps that we can take now that we are already online to really reclaim our attention?
Okay, so I'll give a few. I'll just give like the most sort of obvious, easy to do ones. And I'll ask each of you, because like this is, I guess there's like two things I really hope will come out of the discussion. Is one is specific ideas for people in the audience of all ages. And the other is ideas for what we might do at NYU IRL. Just a future initiative. What would make your life here? What would make your existence as a student just more exciting, more memorable, more emotional, more connected? So the big things we talk about behaviorism and how if you get rewarded on a variable ratio reinforcement schedule like a slot machine, it pays out not every time but on a random schedule. That's the quickest way to addict an animal or a person and to take control of their behavior. And so once everyone understands that, and then video games and a lot of the gambling, all these things do the same thing. Once you understand that and you've been to see this thing that you're carrying with you as this thing that has now addicted you, you look at it and, B.F. Skinner, behaviorist response, you look at your phone and you have all these urges. And so as you saw, they all had to purge their phones of these slot machine apps. That's the biggest single thing you can do is get all the slot machine apps off your phone. So, and especially with TikTok, God knows what is taken from you when you put TikTok on your phone. And anyway. But you can, I do have a TikTok account that I only use on a computer, and the interface is not very good. But if someone sends a TikTok that I say, okay, I can go watch it. So I say, just move it off your phone. Just for starters, just get it off your phone. You can still check Instagram, whatever, on your computer or on an old iPad that you keep in a drawer. And then many of you, how many of you actually literally close down your account? Any of you? Did you close down any accounts?
Prior to your class, I had deactivated my TikTok account in high school, but I didn't have the strength to do it for Instagram while I was taking it.
Okay. No, I do understand. Right. I do understand that Instagram is so woven into the fabric of daily life that it is hard. It is hard to do that.
We are still college students.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And my campaign to destroy the company that made Instagram is just getting started. So we'll. Okay. Yeah. There are lawsuits going on in Los Angeles. We're all very excited about that. So a lot of it, as they all said, a lot of it is you've got to just see the incredible addictive power of this device. It was designed to do that. The apps are designed to do that. And you got to get all of the slot machine apps off your phone. The next step is to get your morning and evening routines right. And we do an exercise where I say, give me the countdown. What's the last 5 things you do before you close your eyes at night? And what are the first 5 things after you open your eyes? And everybody sees like how terrible these habits are. And so we talk about that, and each one has to construct a better set of habits so that you're not in the maelstrom, you're not in the whirlwind all day long. If you have a good wind down routine, you sleep better. If you sleep better, you feel better when you wake up. You meditate, you read, you do whatever it is that sort of builds you up. So that's the second. And then the third really big, obvious, easy thing is shut off the great majority of notifications. How many of you in this room get a notification every time an email comes in? Raise your hand if Gmail notifies. Okay, please stop that. There is really no reason to do that. Now, some of my MBA students work at inhumane companies that require that they respond within 30 minutes to everything, texts and emails. That is incredibly inhumane. But most of us, thank God, don't live like that. You don't let things interrupt you. How many of you get a notification from any news service, like the New York Times or anybody else, that you get news updates, okay? I urge you to turn all of those off. get a daily email. If, you know, there's an old joke from a movie in the 70s, Kentucky Fried Movie, there's like a news bulletin interruption. Moscow in flames, missiles headed towards New York. Film at 11. I promise you, if there is a huge emergency, everyone around you is going to be freaking out. And so you'll find out very quickly. So please shut off. You know, there's, you know, yes, follow the news, but do you want to follow the news 20 times a day? No, once or twice. Anyway, so that's like my short list of like like anyone can do. And I did this with like the entire freshman class. We're doing a new thing at Stern. So all 600 freshmen, me and Dan Lerner, who teaches a positive psychology course, we worked with them to make some of those changes. So that's my short list. What would you add?
I was just going to say, for me, when I was first deleting social media apps, I was constantly wanting the auditory response. So I switched to listening to podcasts, which made me feel much more pretentious than watching TikToks. And then also, me and my friends have been picking up several hobbies, which has helped us become far more in real life. Recently, we're big Catan fans. So that has been, like, I would say the biggest changes in my life is finding something in the interim to replace the scrolling it was necessary. I couldn't just go cold turkey. I needed something in between, and podcast was a really good option. And then finding other hobbies in the real world is kind of what did it for me.
Great. And I just want to point out, podcasts are slow dopamine. What you want to replace is the quick dopamine. And it's like TikTok is quick dopamine. Video games are quick dopamine. A podcast, if it's interesting, if you're interested and you want to listen to more, that is dopamine, but it's delivered at a slow, steady level. So it's a great way to get off. It's really like methadone for heroin addicts in a sense. So keep your eye on that. Keep your eye on the nature of dopamine, because dopamine is the hormone of the neurotransmitter of motivation. You want to be motivated. We want our students to be motivated. And so if you pick good podcasts, you want to find out, so that's great. That's good. Ella?
Yeah, there are two things that have been really, really helpful for me. The first of which has been keeping Instagram off of my phone and only allowing myself to use it on my computer. If you say that like you can't delete Instagram or deactivate your account because like you need to be in group chats, you need to be able to still communicate with these people, then there's no reason why you can just keep it on your computer, where it's like, if you really need to communicate with these people, then you can access it there and you don't have it on you physically all of the time where you can just pull it out anywhere. So that's the first one. That was a really big game changer for me. The second one, I've actually been wanting to tell you about this because we didn't talk about this in your class, but I want to know what you think about it. I started turning my phone. There's a setting in your phone that you can turn it on black and white. And so what's really beautiful about that is like the real world is quite literally in color, and like your phone is entirely in black and white. And so a lot of these things, like you're talking about the addictive nature of like slot machines, is like all of the flashing colors, right? And it's really, you should just try it for a day. You can literally just flip the setting. It's insane how much less interested I am in my phone when it's not in color. It's insane. I would find myself like, I would get on Instagram, I'd be like, this is boring, and turn it off. Because it's like, I had no idea how much the colors were making a difference. You talk about how like the little red notification by like your email is like so important. Turn the color off of your phone and make the real world be the only thing in color, and it'll make it all the more interesting to you.
That is so powerful, because I had this really powerful experience talking to a young woman in her early 20s. Catherine Price, my co-author on The Amazing Generation, she and I were interviewed by Gayle King a few months ago. And, there are always a bunch of young people who work on the set, and they're producers and techs and things like that. And after we had the conversation, this young woman, she came up to me and she said that she had recently gotten off social media and really, put her phone away. And she said she discovered that she remembered that trees are green. And what she meant by that was, after she'd done this for a few weeks, she was like outside and she was like hit by the beauty of trees. She hadn't noticed it since she was a child. She remembered looking up at trees when she was a kid, and that came back to her. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, Everett?
So my tip kind of revolves around sleep, right? I guess I'll give a little anecdote. I've really been struggling with sleep, I guess previously before this class, because if you scroll before bed, you're kind of flooded with all of these videos, all of these thoughts kind of enter your mind immediately. You're not in a state of rest. So what I urge you all to do is no screens at least an hour and 30 before going to bed. And I know this might be hard, like especially during midterm season, right? If you're really studying, you have to stay up late, things of that nature. If you manage your time wisely, that won't be the case, right? If you can limit yourself to not looking at any screens before bed, it'll do wonders. What I do instead is I've been doing this around probably a couple months now. My routine all the time. I listen to meditation before bed. It gets me in a state of calm. It rests my mind. And I don't think about, what happened during the day. All I think about is concentrating on the sound. And that's kind of what has been disrupting a lot of people. And, you're not able to perform at your best if you have bad sleep, right? If you want to be able to optimize your health, optimize your success, you take care of your sleep. And the first thing by doing that is not looking at screens at least an hour and 30 before. And that's what I've been doing for a while now.
Oh, this is wonderful to hear. And did you do meditation? Was that part of your thing in my class, or was that really something you did afterwards?
It was during the end of the class, and now I redo it routinely. Yeah, my dad provided me with a lot of ones, so I'm really thankful for that.
Wonderful to hear. And as you see, when you make these changes, you see the results, that's motivating. And then you keep going and you look for other ways to do it. So in our remaining time, I'd love to turn to you guys as advisors for NYU IRL. What, because there's the Nest. I haven't been. Have you been to the Nest?
Yes, I've been.
Okay. Tell us, give us a critique. Is it, what would you change about it? Tell people what it is.
Yeah, I love the Nest as an initiative. NYU IRL, I'm on all the emails. So I'm getting all the emails. And I think one thing that I really like about it is that there are phone lockers there and they're chargers. So I feel like I'm always running around and my phone is almost dead just because I'm always busy. I'm in college. I still, am connected to the communication device. So going to the Nest and being able to plug my phone in a safe place is really helpful. I also have been switching a lot to paper homework, and I really like being able to go to the Nest to make sure that that's like a place that I can complete it. While I don't know that that's necessarily its intended purpose, because it is bringing people together, there are games there are things to do with friends. I think the ability to do work on paper, I forgot how to do that. I really never did that in high school, and I haven't done that since middle school. So, doing assignments by hand in that space has been really nice.
Yeah. No, that sounds good to me. We're learning more and more about just how devastating it was when we put computers on kids' desks from kindergarten through high school. It's probably the most expensive mistake in the history of education. Tens or hundreds of billions of dollars were spent for something that positively and immediately damaged education. Test scores are going down. So I think the idea of just analog, right, you don't have to, right, you can do homework in the Nest, but analog, even that is a return to IRL.
Yeah, and I also think the other nice thing about the Nest is because it's not necessarily obviously it's an open space. If you wanted to go there and be on your phone, you can. But there's a lot of pressure by peers in that space. If there's someone who's sitting there and is doing paper homework or playing a game with a friend, you're less tempted to take out your device because you're interrupting that space of phone free. And I've noticed that in my classes as well. If a professor, has a screen free mandate in a class and someone pulls out a device, usually they end up putting it away because they feel the pressure from their peers around them. Nobody really wants devices in front of them. It interrupts the lecture.
Okay, good. So a specific thing that we've been talking about at NYU IRL is So university presidents, it's always been a really hard job, and it's in part because you really can't make the faculty do very much. You can sort of, you can talk, but you don't have a lot of control. So I've been suggesting that that Linda really promote a policy that the default policy in NYU classes is screen free. All classes are screen-free. Now, if the professor has a reason, of course, they can do that. But norms, when what Eva was just talking about is the changing the norms that the students themselves are enforcing. What do you guys think about that? If either all of NYU, the norm, the default is screen-free classes, support it?
I think that would definitely be the ideal. You look back to, when humans first formed these groups, right? You don't want to be the outlier. I think getting past that hurdle is definitely a big step, right? Because if you're the one person without Instagram, you might be looked at a little differently. If you're not in the group chats that everyone else is in, it's kind of like an outcast type scenario. And if we can kind of jump over that hurdle, maybe through the use of the NYU administration, that's probably our best way to go. But do you think that's feasible?
Okay, thank you. And do you have any suggestion, what else could we do to give you guys a better undergrad experience?
I guess destigmatizing that phone-free environment, right? I think maybe having more lessons, maybe some internal lessons about teaching people the benefits, right? Because I took the class, so I understand what happened, but that's only the first step, right? You touch the lives of around 40 to 80 people. There's still around tens of thousands of people left in the greater NYU community. So if we find a way to show people hard facts, hard data, then they can kind of transform their lives. And if we're able to do that in a proactive way, that'd be the best bet.
Thank you. We'll try to. We're going to try to do that. To try to get some of the lessons out to all incoming freshmen. So thank you. That's great. Ella, what do you say?
I think what's really interesting about NYU IRL is that it really illustrates the strong demand that students have to a solution to this. I think one of the things, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things that you do when you start our class, right, is like raise your hand if you like the amount of time that you spend on social media, right? Or like, and what you find overwhelmingly is like, most people aren't super happy with it. And it's illustrating this like huge like market now for these apps that are like, we'll take you off of your phone. If you've ever been doom scrolling, it's like, stop, you're doom scrolling. Our app will save you. And none of them work. And so what's clear in all of these is how strong of a demand there is for it. But it's the issue of like, we have to do it as a collective. You don't want to be the outlier. And so what's great about NYU IRL is it creates this opportunity for kids to just walk into the space and know that when you walk into the space, there's like this, like you agree that like you're going to go in and like everyone there, everyone there wants to be off their phone. You want to be off of your phone. So it creates this space in which everyone can do that because we know that overwhelmingly a lot of us have this thing that we want to get off of it. So I think that's really great that there is this demand and finally we're seeing solutions to the demand. I think to advise it, I think a big thing we talk about in your class is this idea of collective effervescence, right? The feeling that we get when we're all at sports games and we're like all cheering for the same team, or like when we're all like dancing together or feel very much in unison with a group. And like I mentioned earlier, I think one of the biggest like problems that NYU faces is this allegation that there's not enough community and there's not enough of this feeling of collective effervescence. So in any way that we could use NYU IRL to also create this feeling of unity around our school and our campus, I think would be great. Whether that means showing up to the basketball games or finding ways to organize around a shared cause, I think would be really important to get students to feel a little bit more like there's a sense of camaraderie between them.
Okay. So basically, if NYU were to sort of give funds that you could put on raves, something like that.
That would be great. Yeah.
That would work.
I mean, the event was super successful. From what I heard, there was an NYU IRL event that was essentially that. It was a backyard party and it allowed people to be in person. So I also think like it's a hard thing to wrap your mind around as a student who is so online, the idea of like, the reason you're stressed, crazy concept, might be because you're so attached to your device all day. I feel like we, especially in New York City, we get so much of the like fast pace, like the world is almost ending at all times and like so much stress and so much like motion and deleting social media or, really minimizing the use of your phone can really help that. I also think like, as much as we want to like stand on stage and share that message with freshmen, it's 600 freshmen in the room and whether they're ready to hear that messaging, I don't know. But I definitely think that the IRL initiative is really moving in the right direction for students at NYU.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. So what you hear in all of their responses is the issue of the collective action problem. And this is a great thing I can say about Gen Z. I have not yet met a single member of Gen Z who is in denial, who says, like, no, the phones are great for us. Like, no, we're fine. Like there's a real understanding. Like, you guys really know, you see the dynamics. And so when an option comes for IRL, yeah, you don't want to be the only one, but if a lot of people are doing it, so we have a lot to work with here. There's a lot of goodwill. There's a desire to have a great college experience. We have great leadership here at NYU. We've got this amazing city. We've got this global campus. And if the trick to solving this whole thing is collective action, it's very hard to, each individual can change their habits, but part of it was that we were together as a class. So you have a group doing it all together. And while my team, we've been focused on schools and state and national level legislation. And we hadn't really considered universities because we kind of thought like, there's such big scattered places, all these different, like what can you really do? But what we found here at NYU through the class and through talking with Linda and through Linda's desire to really take this on, we have the chance to really make NYU be the first university to really do this in a big way. I think we're going to given what we've seen, I think we're going to get very quick response within 1 year. I think we're going to have a big impact on the college experience, especially for the incoming freshmen. And I think NYU is going to emerge as a leader nationally and globally in addressing this important problem. So I hope you'll all give a big round of applause for our students and for our president and our university. And here's Christy to close us out.
Thank you. Thank you. I am Christy Patton, counselor to President Linda Mills and a professor at Steinhardt. And I just want to thank you all for coming. John, I want to thank you for your visionary leadership. You, I think, have helped us see that this is possible. And even though you weren't thinking about universities, we kept thinking the kids you were writing about in the anxious generation are these kids. And they didn't benefit from the stunning work you're doing K through 12. So thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank the students again. I know I learned something from you today. So I hope all of you that raised your hand, that look at your phone at night or whatever, we'll try something. We'll take away something. And go to the women's basketball game tonight at 7:45. They are a record-breaking team, and they're starting the playoffs tonight at 7:45. So take a friend and go without your phone. And I want to especially thank President Linda Mills for really embracing this initiative on such a profound level globally. We have nests in Shanghai. We have nests in Abu Dhabi. A lot of you know that there's a lot going on in Abu Dhabi now. Our students are coming to the nest to get off their screens and away from the news as a source of really connection. And I also want to thank Provost Gigi DePico, who's here, and Mark Siegel from the undergraduate, who's Vice Provost of Undergraduate Education, who's taken this on and saying, how can we do this in the classroom as well? So it's not just, and Jonah, who did that event, is here in the audience as well. I want to give a shout out for him. They brought 200 people for a house party last Thursday, and almost everybody checked their phone at the door. And we're going to be doing more events like that. We're going to be, it's not just the students, we all need help. So we're going to be implementing kind of a 30-day program where we're going to be giving you tips, everyone, adults, students, on how to break up with your phone, which is your colleague, Catherine Price. So really, stay tuned, look forward to come. I would love to bring up the house lights and finish with this. So if you could bring up so that it's actually, we can see. Wonderful. So, you saw in the credits, and these are Tish, Stern, and liberal studies actors. That's the basement of the Torch Club where they filmed this video in. Very talented. But the last thing was starring the person next to you that you can actually talk to. So we're going to finish today by behind you, in front of you, someone you don't know, introduce yourself, something about yourself, and connect in real life. Thank you.